Welcome back to another episode of K.O.R.L Radio, created and curated by yours truly. Anyway, there's a couple things on this beautiful February month. You already know what month it is. I don't need to tell you. You can tell what month it is. I need to get this off my chest. I guess I gotta give some backstory for you guys to understand what's happening here. If you want to understand the position of black folks in America, you need to understand how close we are to the past. Let me just put it in perspective for you. I'm in my 20s, right? Most people in their 20s, their parents would have to be 40 or above, correct? Right? Most people's grandparents are either 60 or above, or they have passed away. We're 24 years past the year 2000, right? So it's been 60 years since the 60s, right? Why is this relevant? Well, most of you do not know this, but Jim Crow did not end until 1965. That is very relevant, because during Jim Crow, what were we considered? My people. Less than a human being. What happened after Jim Crow ended in 65? A lot of things happened. For example, the military-industrial complex was created. The war on drugs started. Now, if you pair these two things up, post-Jim Crow, so it went slavery, Jim Crow, now we are in the things before the civil rights movement, right? There is the industrial prison complex coming about, as well as the war on drugs about to happen. Both of these things target what people? During the war on drugs, you can look it up. Nixon and his compadres, or whatever you want to call them, banded together to attack a certain group of people. The black and the brown folks. That is what the war on drugs was supposed to be targeting, right? And if you pair that with the industrial prison complex, now you have a whole group of people, 62, right? He's 62. So that is the group of people that were targeted. Now, were targeted. They were arrested, they were jailed, they were beaten, they were killed. And this is all right before the civil rights movement and during the civil rights movement, right? This was to do what? Destroy the nuclear family in the black household. Because if you can get rid of the father figures and the leaders from a group of people, that group of people will not be able to survive. And that's exactly what happened. What happened in the post-Jim Crow era was the civil rights movement, war on drugs, and the prison industrial complex, as well as the Cold War, obviously, right? But during this time, a lot of families were torn apart. Specifically, their fathers were taken from them. Killed, beaten, arrested, whatever it may be. Sent to war, whatever, because that was the Vietnam War era too. Whatever it may be, right? This left a void. So, if you'll look around at the black community, what you'll see is a lot of people in the black community are without fathers. And people want to say, oh, men always leave, oh, it's this and that. We just did the math, people. Between the 60s and 2000 was when these men were alive and around, right? I was born in 98. A lot of other people around my age were born before that, right? Most of that generation of people grew up without fathers. And now you look at the state of the world we're in now and how people of our generation act and how like women and men act in our generation, and all you can see is a lack of values and morals. Who instills values and morals in the household? The leader. I'm not saying women can't be leaders, because women have been leaders for many, many years. What I'm saying is, if you take out the father figure from a family, that family 100% will not be as solid if there's not a strong father figure in that family. A lot of people within the black community grew up without a solid family or solid leadership within the household. Thus comes whatever the fuck we're living in right now. Whatever the fuck we're living in right now is the product of what was done to the community for the last 500 years, okay? They just are. I don't make the rules, I just do math. And I think the world has lost the ability to critically think. People are just like, I feel this way, I feel this way, I feel this way. And then they go. Critical thinking skills would have taught a lot of people of the nation why the nation is in the way it is right now. Critical thinking skills, that's all. Because, yeah, I say Jim Crow ended in 65, but before Jim Crow, there was slavery. So, I'm talking to everyone as a whole, so they can just kind of have an idea and really see why the black community is in the way it is right now. And I'm doing this specifically during Black History Month for a reason. The black community is in the situation it's in right now due to literal planning by the government. So, everyone talks about racism like it's some giant living in a hillside. It's literally the foundation of our nation. Y'all trying to figure out how we can get rid of it as if that's a thing that we should even be focusing on. Obviously, there's things that we could do to be better. There's things that we could try to be better, but I want people to see this and understand we got time. So if you just think about when Jim Crow ended, which was in 65, and you just do the math, it's only been 60 years since we were no longer considered three-fifths of the person. So it's called a three-fifths compromise, by the way. So it's been less than a generation since Jim Crow ended. And in that time, I already told you, there was a war on drugs and the prison industrial complex all went into effect in the same time to destroy the black family, right? It's only been 60 years since Jim Crow ended. We weren't even allowed to vote, we weren't allowed to own land, we weren't allowed to have a bank loan, we weren't allowed to do any of that before 1965. And since then, it's only been 60 years since that. But people still want to nitpick and poke at themselves and be down about themselves within the black community, like, oh, we're not doing enough, oh, we're not doing this, we're not doing this. Bruh, it's only been 60 years. It's only been 60 years since black people have been able to thrive without fear of being struck down or our homes being burned down or our businesses being destroyed. It's only been 60 years, guys. And in that 60 years, at least 40 of those years, there was such a large presence of segregation and just blatant racism that there was nothing that we could do. So take off 40 years, let's start in 2000. It's only been 25 years since the black community has had the opportunity to thrive. There's really no argument someone can give me about why they think of black people a certain way that I cannot rebuttal with actual factual history of why it's like that. Anything, ask me anything, literally anything. I'll tell you the exact historical nuances of why that is like that. Because it's not hard, it's very simple. Just do some math, bro. It is 2024. Jim Crow ended in 1965. That is less than one generation behind us. That's literally 60 years behind us, dude. There's a lot of other things under the wall too that are affecting the black community. Like, for example, how if you look at rap labels and hip hop labels, everyone that owns those labels are white men. How old are they? They're around 65 and 70. Why? Because these are the same white men who were voting when Jim Crow was still enlisted in our system. If most people's grandparents are above the age of 60, Jim Crow only ended 60 years ago, why would y'all think that the world wouldn't still be run by people who don't like us? Most of the old folks you see walking around, white, black, purple, whatever color they are, were alive during a time when our group of people were considered not even a full human being. And then you guys try to sit here and tell us that slavery was so long ago, you should forget about it, and racism is a thing. Jim Crow ended 60 years ago. Your grandparent is 78. Your grandparent's 78. Go ask them how they feel about black folks, and then you'll see how America feels about black folks. Because I'm just gonna be honest with you, I've worked the polls, I've worked a lot of polls as in like the voting polls. I've worked a lot of different jobs. Who is voting? Old people are voting. We're not voting, old people vote. Because that is what they have been taught. And the people that are going to vote are your grandmother, your great aunt, your mom's brother, your mom's sister. Now let's do parents. My mom is around 50, right? 45, 50. Most people's parents, and if they're my age, most people's parents are around that age, right? These people were 10 years removed from Jim Crow. My mom was born in, 73, right? Jim Crow ended in 65. My mom was born 8 years after that. Y'all think the world wasn't still thinking on Jim Crow era mindset? It was. Why do you think the civil rights movement had to happen? It's like, I say this to people, right? And they think I'm like a hotep or something. They think I'm like spewing nonsense at them. But it's just, people aren't willing to really just do math. It's not even something crazy, Joe. It's literally just math. If you do the math and you just think about it, just the younger people that were alive during Jim Crow are still alive. If you were, let's say you were born in 1962, you're a pretty young grandparent right now. You're only like 68 if you were born that time. Do you understand what I'm saying here? That means your parents, your grandparents' parents, so your great-grandparents, all lived during a time before segregation. So a time when black folks weren't even considered human beings. And then you want me to sit here and act like how they think didn't trickle down into their kids and then their kids after that? Are you dumb? Are you dumb? Are you dumb? Are you dumb? I get irritated being around people and they're like, well, how do we get rid of racism? How do we beat racism? How do we destroy it? You can't destroy something that is the foundation of your nation. You cannot destroy something that is the foundation of your entire nation. Without racism, America wouldn't be a thing. It would have never have happened. So how do you get rid of something that is the foundation of your society? I'll give you a little secret. You can't. Racism will never go away, just like prejudice will never go away. You know why? Because opinions will never go away. There will never be a time where someone will look at everyone equally. Why? Maybe there will be a time, but not in the past 60 years. Give it 100 years, maybe. And also, if you're a black person and you live in a place that was designed to keep you there, and you feel like you're not doing enough, now you know exactly who I'm talking to. Think about this. Your entire race has only had 60 years, and I'm not even going to say fully, because there was segregation, there was all this other crap attacking us, segregation, war on drugs, prison pipeline, like all of this stuff was attacking us. In that 60 years, we haven't even had a chance to thrive yet. And people act like black folks are like not doing enough, or they're not doing what they need to do, or they're not where they need to be. When we've only had 60 years of doing this, man. We're less than one generation removed from Jim Crow, and people act like the black community is supposed to be like on par with the white community that have had 500 years to build what they have. You talk to the average white person, their grandparents or their great-grandparents left them land. They left them land, they left them money, they left them stuff to do. They left them funds, they left them treasure, they left them whatever. You know why they could do that? You know why they could leave them all that? Because they made money off the backs of people who were not considered human. Like, as long as greed exists, racism and prejudice will always be prevalent in our nation, in our world. As long as greed exists. Because if someone can look at someone and say, oh, I can get this, and they won't be able to have it, it's always going to be a thing. Because no matter, you can take off everyone's skin, you can take off everyone's colors, take it all out. There'll still be greed and prejudice, and there'll still be racism, because someone will find a way to target that group and say, no, that group is not as good as us because of whatever reason. It will always be a thing, okay? I don't know. This kind of sparked up, and I was in the sauna, and I was talking to people about this, right? And this guy who's from, he's Kurdish, and he's from Kurdistan, right? And he looked at me, and I was talking about all this stuff I'm telling you guys about, and he was like, "Oh, I understand where black people are coming from." Well, he didn't even say, that's not what he said. "I understand where you guys are coming from because my people are enslaved right now. I had to buy my uncle back, right?" And I'm thinking, I'm looking, I'm listening, I'm talking to him, I'm like, "Oh, shoot. Like, that's crazy, man. I didn't know that was a thing." Like, you know what I'm saying? And this guy starts talking about it, and he's like, "This is why I understand the blacks, because in my country," I literally stopped him and said, "First of all, dude, if you're going to say that, please say black people, because clearly you don't understand us, because you just refer to us as the blacks." You see where the disconnect comes? And I don't think he did that on purpose. I don't think bad person. I just corrected him, because what isn't happening in our nation is learning. People aren't being taught history. People aren't being taught how the nation works. People aren't being taught what is truth. And that's why I started this by saying everything that we were taught in our lives in school was propaganda and lies. Because if you really look at the history and you look at the things that have happened and you look at how things run in our country, if we would have had a perspective on it that we have now, most of us would have probably dropped out. But no, we were lied to and poked and prodded and told half-truths so we could go into the system that was built before us. This is not rocket science, people. You can literally look at a timeline and see things matching up. Civil rights movement was in 1975. Jim Crow ended in 1965. Let's just do the civil rights movement. Let's say the civil rights movement, quote unquote, ended in 79, right? Bro, that is 40 years ago. That is 40 years ago, people. So think about it, just put it in perspective. America was founded in 17 something. I don't know, 17 something, 1730 something, right? The slave trade began in 1525 by the Portuguese and Spanish, transporting African slaves to Central America. England got into it by the late 1500s. When the Pilgrims set voyage to the Americas in 1602, they all carried, guess what, African slaves. Now, as we all know, America gained independence from England in 1776. So from 1602 to 1776, yes, African slaves built America and helped America become what it is today. Then comes everything else we know. Before Jim Crow ended and the civil rights movement happened, black folks weren't allowed to own land. Black folks weren't allowed to get a loan at a bank. Black folks weren't allowed to open up businesses. And if we did, we were killed. Our businesses got destroyed, etc. So people look at the hood and they look at the black community and they're like, "Oh, black people ain't shit." And I'm just like, you're talking to a race of people that are literally in their infancy. Like, the black community is literally in its infancy. Like, we are infants compared to the time other races have had time to curate and build. They're like, "No, I'm Irish. Our people were looked at bad too." When, dude? When? 1920? 1920, right? But by 1930, y'all were allowed to own land, weren't you? By 1930, you were allowed to get jobs, weren't you? By 1930, y'all were allowed to allowed to work, get a bank loan, right? Because you were still what? My people only been doing this for 60 years. We did not get freedom until recently, bro. And people just don't even understand the fact that that is not something that we had any control over. Black folks had no control over the way that they were able to live until very recently. And I say very recently because that's within 60 years. We are one generation, less than one generation removed from Jim Crow. And people wonder why we're in the state we're in. We haven't had time to flourish yet. Give us some time, yo. Maybe if other races stop stealing everything from black folk and give us the credit, maybe we'll be flourishing. Oh wait, we already are flourishing. It's only been 60 years. I don't know, I get mad about that kind of shit, bro. Being black, you have never been treated in society as a normal person. You've always been treated in society as a black person. Am I saying that's a negative or a positive? I'm just saying that's a fact. Let me explain the hood to you real quick. The hood is a place that was created to be that way. The black community does not make the hood the way it is. The city makes the hood the way it is. How does the city do this? By city planning, redlining. So if you go to any hood in America, which is considered like a hood, like this is the hood, you will notice something about it. They don't have grocery stores or infrastructure. Now, if you live in a place where there's nowhere to get fresh food and produce, you're going to eat processed foods. We all know processed foods slowly kill people. So there's a place called the Hood, and there's only processed food in there, and there's no access to infrastructure, nor are there any like city programs there, like libraries and things like that, attractions, things like that, things for enrichment of minds, right? So you have a group of people that you have established that's where they're living, and their grandparents have lived there, and that's where they should live. So then they do what they can do, because in an environment where there's no access to new opportunities or actual food, there's only three things these people can do: fight each other for resources, leave, or crime. How do you get out of a position that was built for you to be in? Crime, fight each other, or leave. Why won't you leave? My family is there. So why would I leave? My family's here. Now they're stuck. There's two: fight each other and crime. And then you wonder why the Hood is in the position it is in. There's no access to food or infrastructure or money, and you keep them there, and you pollute it with drugs, war on drugs, and alcohol. Now this is the part that people don't talk about, right? You want to talk about the military, right? What do military recruiters focus on? Places that don't have a lot of money. So now that's another option for people that live in the Hood. Crime, fight each other, or the military. These places are designed to kill us. Who were they designed by? The same people that started the war on drugs and the prison industrial complex. Literally, Jim Crow ended and America thought of 14 different ways to keep black folks where they are. All these things create a cycle. They create a cycle. You put people in a place that has no resources, which forces them to fight each other, commit crimes, or join the military. You have your fighting force now, you have your free, cheap slave labor for prison, and you have your melting pot for people to just die, and you can get rid of people without even looking at them. Folks don't even have to kill black people anymore. Folks don't even have to enslave black people anymore. They created a system where we enslave ourselves. How do we enslave ourselves? Because they created an environment that we cannot escape. It takes so much willpower to get out of the Hood. Oh, that don't work? Well, let me try this. Oh, I got a friend over here doing this. I'll try that. They're just trying shit. They don't know what they're doing. They're just trying shit. Because there's no infrastructure. There's no role model. There's nowhere. I already told you the men have already been taken out. Like, there's no role model. There's no infrastructure. There's no way for these people to get the help they need. And the government leaves them to fucking die. And then people again wonder why the world is in the position it's in. They wonder why the black community is in the position it's in. It was fucking planned, dude. It's like shooting monkeys in a basket. They put us all in a basket and they're just shooting at it, poking holes in it and throwing it in the ocean. And then they ask us, why aren't you doing better? Because y'all made it impossible to do better. Even if those are the people that just try to make ends meet and stay comfortable in the environment they're in. Just like everyone else in the world does, right? Everyone else in the world does that. I'm going to say I rest my case, but like honestly, I could honestly talk about this for hours because it's so infuriating talking to people. Folks, like a lot of people don't like African Americans because they're lazy. They're always talking about this slavery thing. We had it bad too. Like, y'all can get over it. You're right, we can, but it's only been 60 years. We're only one generation removed from it, dude. Give us some time. Most of us haven't even met our dads yet. And I'm not making a joke. I'm being serious. A lot of us either never had a father figure in the home or just never met them because they were arrested during the war on drugs or the prison industrial complex. They were arrested. There was nothing we could do. There was no leadership or role models for us to look up to. We just trying shit, bro. And that's all we can do. Fuck that. You know what we should focus on? Building communities. Go into the hood, take out all the corner stores, take out the gun store, take out the pawn shop, take out the liquor store, put a library, and put a fucking Kroger. That is how you save the black community. Go into the hood and build a Kroger. That's it. That's all you gotta do, bro. It's not rocket science. That's all you gotta do. These dudes are just eating candy for breakfast. I noticed. They're just eating candy for breakfast because all they got is the corner store. Now, if you feed someone sugar from the time they're born to when they're 18, they're gonna act a little fucking crazy. Now I want to rest my case because I've been, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. Most of your grandparents are older than 60 years old. 60 years old. Most. Yeah. Most of them are older than 60 years old. So you're over here trying to figure out why these people act this way or these people are the way they are when they've only had 60 years in one generation with no fathers. Because you know what happened before 1965? World War I and World War II. Like, you can look at history and see why the world is the way it is. Yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of K.O.R.L, created and curated by yours truly. Anyway, there's a couple things on this beautiful February month. You already know what month it is, I don't need to tell you. You can tell what month it is.